Hey everyone, if you're planning to register a medical device in Hong Kong, then one of the most confusing questions manufacturers face is, do we really need clinical data for Hong Kong registration? And honestly, this is where most companies either over-prepare and waste time and money, or under-prepare and face delays, queries, or rejection. Because in Hong Kong's regulatory system under Medical Device Administrative Control System, clinical data requirements are not always straightforward. They depend on device risk class, intended use, novelty of technology, available global approvals, safety profile, existing evidence strength. And here's the real problem. Many manufacturers assume we have CE or FDA approval, so clinical data is not needed. But that is not always true. In reality, some devices require full clinical evaluation, some require literature-based evidence, some require post-market data, some can rely on existing global clinical evidence. So in this complete guide, we'll break down when clinical data is required in Hong Kong, when it is not required, step-by-step clinical evidence strategy, MDACS expectations explained simply, timeline breakdown, cost breakdown, very important, required documents, real mistakes manufacturers make, clinical data sourcing strategy, FDA/CE versus Hong Kong clinical expectations, gap analysis approach, approval risk reduction strategy. Let's begin. Part 1. What clinical data means in Hong Kong. Clinical data in Hong Kong is not just clinical trials. It includes clinical studies, published literature, real-world evidence, post-market surveillance data, risk-benefit justification. In MDACS framework, clinical data is used to prove safety, performance, intended use validation. Key insight: clinical data does not always mean new trials. It means evidence that supports safe and effective use of the device. Example: a manufacturer assumed clinical trials were mandatory, but literature evidence and FDA data was sufficient. Result: over-invested in unnecessary studies. Key insight: clinical data is flexible, but must be scientifically justified. Part 2. When clinical data is required. High-risk devices, most likely to require clinical data. These include implantable devices, life-supporting devices, active therapeutic devices, high-risk diagnostic systems. Why? Because risk level is higher. Authorities need stronger justification. Example: a cardiac implant device required. Clinical evaluation report, supporting published studies. Result: full clinical data review required. Moderate risk devices may require literature review, equivalent device comparison, partial clinical justification. Example: diagnostic monitoring device, no new trials needed, literature evidence accepted. Low-risk devices often require basic safety data, performance validation, existing global approvals. Example: simple surgical accessory, no clinical trials required. Key rule: clinical data requirement depends on risk classification, novelty of technology, existing global approvals. Common mistake: assuming all devices require clinical trials. Result: unnecessary cost and delay. Part 3. Step-by-step clinical data strategy. Step 1. Device classification analysis. Determine risk level, intended use, technology category. Mistake: using EU/FDA classification only. Fix: perform Hong Kong-specific classification review. Step 2. Global data review. Check FDA clinical summaries, CE clinical evaluation reports, ISO compliance evidence. Mistake. Assuming global data is fully sufficient. Fix. Assess relevance to Hong Kong use case. Step 3. Gap analysis. Identify missing elements. Clinical evidence gaps. Safety justification gaps. Performance validation gaps. Example: FDA data existed but lacked Asia population relevance. Result: additional justification required. Mistake: skipping gap analysis phase. Fix: always perform structured comparison. Step 4. Clinical evidence strategy selection. Choose one or combination. Literature-based review. Equivalent device comparison. Clinical trial data. Post-market data. Mistake: using only one evidence type. Fix: use hybrid evidence strategy. Step 5. Clinical evaluation report. CER. CER includes device description, risk-benefit analysis, clinical literature summary, safety conclusions. Mistake: copying CER without adaptation. Fix: localize CER to Hong Kong expectations. Part 4. Documents required. Core documents. Clinical evaluation report, CER, risk management file, literature review, device description, intended use statement, supporting documents, FDA summaries, if available, CE technical documentation, post-market surveillance data, test reports, ISO certifications, common document errors, missing justification links, inconsistent terminology, outdated literature sources, weak risk analysis. Key insight: clinical data is only strong when structured correctly. Part 5. Timeline breakdown with existing global data. 2 to 6 months without clinical data. 6 to 18 months if new evidence required. Delete factors: missing literature, weak CER structure, rejected justification, classification confusion. Key insight: better clinical data equals faster approval. Part 6. Cost breakdown. Direct costs. Clinical consultant fees. Literature review preparation. CER development. Regulatory advisory. Hidden costs. New clinical study costs. Resubmission costs. Extended approval delays. Product launch delay losses. Example: company skipped proper CER preparation. Result: additional consulting doubled cost later. Key lesson: proper clinical planning reduces long-term costs significantly. Part 7. Biggest mistakes. Mistake 1. Assuming no clinical data is needed. Result: submission delays. Mistake 2. Overdoing unnecessary clinical trials. Result: wasted resources. Mistake 3. Copy-paste CER from other regions. Result: regulatory rejection risks. Mistake 4. Weak literature review. Result: insufficient evidence. Mistake 5. Ignoring gap analysis. Result: incomplete submission package. Key insight: clinical data success is about balance, not excess or shortage. Part 8. Final strategic takeaway. Smart strategy summary. Assess device risk first. Leverage global clinical evidence. Perform structured gap analysis. Build strong CER documentation. Avoid unnecessary trials. Align evidence with MDACS expectations. One powerful sentence: clinical data is not about how much you have, it's about how well it supports your device safety and performance. planning to register your medical device in Hong Kong, don't let missing clinical evidence, over-preparation, poor CER structure, wrong assumptions, delayed submissions slow your market entry. Why choose OMC Medical? Clinical evaluation expertise, MDACS regulatory support, CER development assistance, gap analysis services, FDA/CE clinical data integration, end-to-end submission strategy. Whether you're unsure about clinical requirements or preparing submission, talk to OMC Medical experts today. If this video helped you understand clinical data requirements for Hong Kong medical device registration, follow OMC Medical for more regulatory insights, global compliance strategies, and medical device market entry guidance. See you in the next video.